Hello, this is Statler Smith. You are watching one installment of a weekly series where I write an essay about something that's on my mind, record myself speaking that essay, and then upload that video to YouTube. For reasons set forth in the initial video in this series, this is a practice for myself. As such, this video will likely not be entertaining or particularly educational. Perhaps one day I will have value to add to others, but in the words of Aragorn, King of Gondor, it is not this day. If you choose to keep watching, feel free to give feedback on the clarity of thought and speech, as that is what I am trying to improve. Please let me know if you have undergone a similar journey or have tips to share. And who knows, maybe I will eventually add more video editing. With that, let's get into this week's essay. Hello, the topic on my mind this week is individual moral quality. That is to say, the moral character of an individual person. I took harassment training at my work recently, and they were clear during the training that what matters is not what you intend, but rather what other people think about what you do. I disagree quite strongly when it comes to this individual moral character. This disagreement has made me pause and think about what my thoughts are about morality. I consider the moral quality of an individual entirely dependent on their intentions. Personally, I subscribe to the belief that our knowledge about right and wrong comes from Jesus Christ, but I also think that this perspective on morality is supported by our individual human experiences. This argument begins with the premise that qualities intrinsic to an individual are independent of external sources. The shape of a ball is not dependent on whether I perceive it as a ball or not. The actuality of intrinsic qualities are the truths that are not altered by our perception of them. Second premise is that morality is an intrinsic quality. Just like a ball has a shape, a person has a moral quality. A person's character is not dependent on whether or not someone perceives them as being good or bad. If that were the case, and if two people perceived an individual differently, that would cause a contradiction. Therefore, a person's character cannot be dependent on the perception of others. Therefore, morality is independent of external sources. Instead, morality is solely based on the choices of the individual. What then are those choices? Now, choices can be classified as either intentions or actions. We can choose to act, and we can choose the purpose behind our actions. Both action and intention seem to relate to morality, but they are not the same. Action, of course, is the actual action we take, whereas intention is our purpose behind that action, the why behind the what, so to speak. So, how do both relate to morality? Let's take a little look closer at each of them. Now, does action determine an individual's moral quality? For that to be the case, an objective list of specific actions would need to be kept and adhered to for someone to stay moral, or morally good, I guess we could say. As situations which have never yet appeared come up, new ways of being moral or immoral would need to keep being added to that list. Also, any special situations would also need to be listed. Looking through an example, let's take physically hurting another person. In most situations, that's wrong. I think just flat out, right? I don't know if we have a whole lot of disagreement about that. But what about self defense, right? Or defending a family member or somebody else who is in trouble? In those situations, physical violence may be the only recourse. The action itself, then, cannot be what determines an individual's morality. The only other aspect of choice left is intention. Now, this is not stated intention or declared intention, but actual, honest intention. If somebody says they intend to help somebody, but actually intend to boost their own public image, the intention that matters for morality is the latter. As I mentioned before, I believe this is supported both by the scriptures that I personally subscribe to, as well as observations of humanity. Of course, removing action from the morality equation opens up a few issues. One is that the impact on others doesn't matter, and the second is that potential for using this definition as an excuse. If actions have no bearing on whether or not a person is moral, how do we justify somebody that spends their whole lives hurting others as a moral person? With this approach, morality is also divested from good, from doing good, right? Intending good does not put food in people's mouths, affirm the love spouses have for each other, or in reality, help anybody. How can a definition of morality be so indifferent to helping other people? Here, I'm going to go back to the action versus intention split. Um, while one can be morally good with only having good intentions, the impact of their actions determines how effective they are at being moral. This is based mostly on knowledge and capability instead of intentions. If somebody wants to save a life but doesn't know how, are they morally corrupt if somebody dies in front of them? No. Increasing their knowledge and capacity enables them to more effectively carry out their good intentions. While the moral quality of an individual is determined by their intentions, their moral effectiveness is determined by their knowledge and capacity to carry out those intentions. The world, then, will be improved both with those who choose to have good intentions, as well as those who educate themselves and increase their capacity to do good. The second counter argument is that this conclusion gives people an excuse for ignorant and unhelpful actions under the guise of this intention based morality. Somebody in a position of influence who means well can take this whenever they mess up and absolve themselves of responsibility. In my response to this, I have two comments. First, if a person truly has good intentions, they will apply themselves to learning how to carry out their intentions more effectively. Ignorance should not last long for those who truly care about helping others. Second, if somebody is in a position of influence, particularly in an organization of some sort, the position is given with an assumed level of competence. That position or influence can and should be removed if the actual level of competence is significantly lower than the expected level of competence. With all that being said, I think this is most useful on a personal level. If if I do something with the intention of doing good, I am confident that I am a morally good person. I can learn to more effectively realize my intentions for sure, but the reactions of other people don't determine my moral quality. For example, I frequently, maybe not quite as frequently as I should, pick up cards every so often and write love letters to my wife within those cards. Recently, I learned that every time she gets one, she is concerned that I might be writing that card not because I love her, but because I'm frustrated with her and I'm just trying to do something to get over that frustration or whatnot. Um, so the impact that I intend to have is to show her my love. But that's not the impact that I necessarily was having all those times. Now, does that mean that I'm not a good person because I caused uncertainty and frustration in her life? No. Does that mean that I have nothing to learn or improve about more effectively showing her my love? No, of course I have much to learn. Similarly, I believe this concept can protect the dignity of people who mean well and make a few social blunders. Many discussions the past years have centered on political correctness, censorship, and desperately trying not to offend the masses. Several who have misstepped have found their lives destroyed. I believe that many whose lives have been destroyed by this were good people, even if they said something that seemed outrageous. Their intentions and even the impact of their statements did not warrant the vitriol thrown at them. On the flip side, several people say things solely to get the approval of the masses. Personally, I believe that those who went that route, who just want approval, are have I guess less of a moral quality. Even if you could argue that the impact is a more positive um, or a more positive effect on the world. Now, tying this back to the beginning, specifically the harassment training, I believe that morality is determined not by how others react to your actions, but rather your intentions behind what you do. This is because intrinsic qualities are independent of external perception, and morality is an intrinsic quality. Additionally, the specific actions we take as it regards morality are too subjective based on culture and other perceptions to be considered a reliable determinant of morality. Therefore, intention is the basis of morality, which is independent of external responses. Now, I understand that the harassment training needs to focus on what will cause legal ramifications, um, but that being said, I still posit that a person's moral character is independent of external influences. Now, that's the essay for this week. Again, if you have comments on the clarity of thought, clarity of speech, happy to take notes. If you have any experiences trying to go through this yourself and improve how you think and how you speak, let me know what you have done to improve that. Looking forward to the next week's Within this framework, there's a hierarchy of intentions, right? Some contribute more to a higher moral quality than others. I might cover that in a different essay. I'm also looking to debunk this entire framework that I've set up and look at some of the problems and the arguments. So I might do that one next week. But if there's a logical error that you've seen, comment it below, and I will add that. Granted, nobody's been listening to these so far, so I doubt that it will have any comments. But this is still fun for me. So for those who are watching, have a good week. Future Statler, don't forget to intend well. And we will see you in a future video.